Welcome to the Sheridan Report on the Grueling True Sports Network. The Sheridan Report is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. You can go to MyBookie.ag, put in the promo code TGT100 for a 100% cashback bonus on your first deposit up to $300, or go to thegruelingtruth.com and click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page. We are also brought to you by the Handicappers Guide. Is it Handicappers or Handicappers?
Handicappingers.
Handicappingers.
The handicapping.
All right. All right, and you can go check out Phil Rankin. Halfway down on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see THG. Click that. That'll take you there. And if you want to bet the ponies, that's the best way to do it. Do people still say bet the ponies, Bobby?
They do. I hear that a lot.
All right. Bobby, remember this. You haven't been introduced yet, so don't talk. Jeez. All right, and we've got from the Sheridan Report, Bobby Sheridan. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm okay, Mike. How you doing? And, you know, baseball, Mike, been a little frustrating again now. We've got the favorites winning at a high rate again over the last 2-3 days. And, you know, I haven't been able to get the consistency I want, but the numbers are there over the years, and there's no panic. I'm just waiting to get, like I said, some consistency with some of these dogs and put together some good mix and match opportunities for the fans. And so I put my sheet on the internet today for free. It's posted underneath my Twitter, and, you know, because yesterday we blanked on the baseball and our hockey didn't win. So, you know, we've had many a good shows for the fans, and yesterday was a great show other than the picks. So we need to bounce back for them today, Mike. And I think I've got a few here in baseball. I know you'll talk about some hockey opportunities coming up in Game 2, which is tomorrow. So let's have a good show for picks wise, for picks reasons too, not just for having a good show.
All right, Bobby. You want to start off with Major League Baseball?
Well, this is where it's going to happen, Mike, for me. This is the baby tonight, and we're going to see if we can bring it home. We got 3-team mix and match parlay I'll go over first, and we have a little change in there. There's been a pitching change, and I'll go over that right now. But the mix and match I used was the Tigers at 405, the Red Sox at 410. That's with a pair of good left-handers. And then I was going for the trifecta with the Twins at 5-10 with Martin Perez, but he's been scratched. So, and we'll go over that right now. I'm going to replace the Twins or add in the Phillies into my mix and match scramble there. So the official 3-teamer will be the Tigers, Red Sox, and Phillies. Phillies are also in the 4 o'clock hour, and that's the team that was my fourth of the last night. So I just threw them in. And what happened was the Twins game, they had a late scratch of Perez, and they're going to throw, looking it up now, the name for you. It's a new name. They're going to throw a guy named Devin Smeltzer tonight, and he's not a guy I want to back. You know, they're still minus 110. They're going against one of Milwaukee's better pitchers, Zach Davies, who's been struggling a little bit the last start or two. And I really liked Minnesota tonight coming off a loss with their ace on the mound, or one of they have a couple aces, but I think he's been pitching like their ace. And I didn't want to go ahead and stick with that take fully without having the guy on the mound that I wanted, but just for the fans to talk about, Devin Smeltzer, I couldn't get any information on him. I'm going to have to look up some more information. I'm trying to look it up here now too. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, no, they've still got Perez listed there. I've got to look up some information there on Devin Smeltzer, but this was a late change. But anyhow, let's go with Philadelphia as our add in there to replace Minnesota. And so there's your 3-teamer. Left-hander David Price, who we had him the other day on Saturday. He had a really tough break. Boston was the top play for us in Houston on Saturday when David Price took the mound. And he came out after 3 batters, Mike. He had flu-like symptoms, and that's okay. We come back on Tuesday with him now. He's at home. Boston's playing like the world champs all of a sudden again. They've got their act together. The bullpen is still not probably exactly where they want it, but it's coming up with good performances. Starting pitching has settled down. The offense has picked up. So, you know, they're starting to play, and so that American League East is really going to get competitive here now. And Boston's minus 192 tonight. I do like them at price over Cleveland. I think they'll get the win there. And then the Tigers with Matthew Boyd, this is a bad team with a good pitcher on the mound today. Baltimore's improved their offense, but that's not exactly, meaning the win total is they're not winning all these games. They're still coming off of a losing road trip, and they did win yesterday at home, but I think these two teams will trade victories. Detroit, if they're going to get one on the road, it's going to be with Boyd on the mound, so let's go with them. They're a small favorite on the road. And then, of course, Philadelphia, we just added in. This is game 2 of their series with St. Louis. And you got Adam Wainwright, who, to me, just is not the same guy he was. He's a breaking ball pitcher still, of course, but does not have the fastball and the command. And I think Philadelphia Pavetta will outpitch him today. So that's your 3-teamer. Now, Mike, here's the 3 dogs that I've been famous for over the years, hitting 2 of these at least on a very consistent basis. And this year has been inconsistent. So let's see if we can break that a couple of days here where everything going into the 8th and 9th inning, we've been tied or about and getting beat. So let's see if we can break that today. And Chicago Cubs, Mike, this is an interesting game. This is a type atmosphere. Cubs going to play Houston. And you've got John Lester on the mound, the playoff dynamo, one of the best playoff pitchers ever, going against Houston. Both teams yesterday had some injuries. The Cubs were without Hayward and Bryant, and the Astros were without Diaz and Springer and Altuve. And, well, both teams have some good depth. But Houston especially has surprised yesterday with a nice offensive performance. They had a 5-run inning that took us out. They didn't score the rest of the game, but they built a 6-2 lead and held on. Cubs battled on them. But, well, today I think John Lester is going to outpitch Corbin Martin, who's a new pitcher for them, 2019. He's had 3 starts that are nothing spectacular. And Houston's still a favorite. Well, maybe because Lester's last 2 starts haven't been good. But this is what happens when you're a veteran, Mike, and when you've been around a long time and you've had the success you've had. You know how to deal with bad performances, bad days, just like we've had yesterday at TSR. And so you keep your level head, you bounce back, and you prepare for your next start, and you deliver when your team needs you to deliver. And Lester, off of a loss here, I think he'll be very difficult for Houston to handle. I think he'll bounce back to his form. I think Cubs will be able to lead in this game and get into Houston's secondary bullpen. And I think this will be a game that Houston can win pretty comfortably. And the plus, I meant the Cubs if I said Houston. Cubs over Houston. The Cubs are plus 128. So that's a really good price on off-fame pitcher John Lester. And then the other straight play that's also a top play that I like is Eric Lauer. A left-handed theme today. Eric Lauer with the Padres. This is a sneaky one against the Yankees. Tanaka. It's not, yesterday's game set up perfect for the Yankees. They won that game 5-2, game 1. This is the interleague matchup. Really, this is the game I'm really looking forward to watching. 3:35 Pacific start. And Tanaka, he's pitched better on the road, I would say, when I looked at the numbers, and he has at Yankee Stadium. Lauer coming off of a really good performance. The left-handed arm is the way to go against the Yankees. We're getting a good matchup there. And, everything fell really well for the Yankees yesterday. Their bullpen was set up perfect. They got 5 innings out of their starter, and they went boom, 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 kind of like a playoff game, where the starter goes 4 or 5, and then they just hammer you with all those bullpen arms. Well, Tanaka is one of their better pitchers. He's going to try to go 6 or 7. I think we'll get to him, get the lead. See, the key is going to be to have the lead so that we can kind of keep the Yankees from going to that. Well, that worked yesterday for them. I don't think it'll work again for them. They're going to do a little more today. And, the Padres, Lauer, he has shutdown capability. And I'm literally looking for a big start out of him today. And the Padres offense is well equipped. They have a lot of good bats, power to take advantage in that smaller ballpark. I think they're going to pop a couple home runs tonight and turn the tables and win game 2. I think they're a pretty good team, Mike, and I think that they've got some veterans that are going to want to play on that stage. This is a interleague matchup, big ballpark, Yankee Stadium. This is their opportunity to play big, and I think they'll do it. Guys like Hosmer and Machado and Kinsler and these kind of guys. Renfroe's having a big year. Franmil Reyes is a new emerging star for them, and I think they're going to play a big game. So this is kind of a sneaky top play. They're plus 174, so I like them a lot.
All right, Bobby, you want to
finally
talk a
our
little...
third?
Oh, go ahead. I thought we were on a third.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I'm long-winded, but finally,
yes, you are. You're like Steve Risley today. Go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to really be analytical on my baseball for the fans, and finally, the Mets, Mike. The Dodgers are a very good team, and they seem to win almost every night, and so, but they're overvalued. It's not just so easy to walk into the sports book and say, "Oh, give me the Dodgers and give me the Astros." Or whatever.
You did a Steve Risley impersonation there, didn't you?
No. I'm doing the
sound like it.
Whoever impersonation, the guy that walks in. But
touche.
Let's
go.
Any Indiana guy that played in the '81 championship, the Dodgers are overvalued, Mike, and the Mets got a good opportunity here in this series, I believe, to win a game or two. We had them yesterday, and had the lead in the middle innings and came up short. But we're going to come back again today. Maybe the left-hander Mets would be the way to go. That used to be the way to beat the Dodgers. Throw left-hand pitching at them. So let's see if we can, take the lead in this game and open up a few things. You got to hit the long ball, Mike. Now in the big leagues, it's strikeouts and long ball. That's what I was having a long discussion with somebody about that just last night. I'm in Vegas right now, and we were talking about baseball and how it's looking right now, and we had a good discussion with a guy that I really respect and know a lot. He's a very good gambler himself and a handicapper. So, but anyways, the Mets at plus 25. There's just too much value here. The Mets at 185. The Padres at up to 178 now. Cubs are 128. The blind is just going in and taking the Dodgers, Yankees, and Astros, and they're getting paid off. But see, these numbers, 80% favorites is going to come down to 59% before it's all done, Mike. And these teams don't just win every night. And so we're going to put together a sweep here soon at some big numbers. So there's your baseball.
All right, Bobby, you want to go NBA or NHL?
Mike, I want to streamline and let the listeners hear you talk for a little bit. The NHL's setting up okay now for you.
We'll see. Of course, the Blues lost last night, and they dominated, I thought, the first period. We're up 2-1. They were the more physical team, and then the second and third period occurred. And the biggest part of the entire night was Torrey Krug. Following the altercation with David Perron in front of Tuukka Rask at the goal, Krug added a little extra muscle to his clean collision with Robert Thomas following the altercation with Perron, and I think that really gave them the energy to win this game and to go up 1-0 in the series. And the Blues have got to come up here and do something to stop this. We talked yesterday how both of these teams are real big, physical. There's not much space on the ice, so it's whatever team. This is like an old football adage. I always tell my football team, I've never had a team lose that out-hit the other team. But I've never won when I've been out-hit. And I think yesterday, you had a 2-1 lead at the end of a period, and it wasn't because offensively they were so good. It's because they out-hit them. And in the second and third periods, that changed completely. Tuukka Rask played perfect at the end of the game. And I think Clifton and McAvoy set the comeback tone. I still think this is a 7-game series. I still like the Blues in Game 2, but I think this is a series where they could trade games all the way through. I just think that blowing a 2-0 lead, I think it was 2-0 at the start of the second period either, and everything just kind of fell apart by that 15-minute mark at the second period, 5 minutes in. And it doesn't really change my opinion of this. This is not like the Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins, where the Bruins basically were just way too physical for them. This was a game that I thought, 2 periods the Bruins won, 1 period St. Louis won. And when you get something like that, you're going to lose the game. But it also gives us a chance to get much better odds on winning this series, Bobby.
That's what I'm all about, Mike. And St. Louis on mine for Game 2 are now plus 145. And for the series, you can now get plus 245 or 255. So these numbers have jumped. Now it's time to come in, get your big Game 2 win, split. Now you've got in the bank, and you've got a great series bet on St. Louis. What do you think?
That's what I thought before, so I'll just stay with
it. Hey, you're the guy. I'm just taking your pick and trying to apply it. I think it's great. Blues in 7, you can get 5 to 1. I'm looking up that right now. Blues in 6, you can get 5.5 to 1. So that doesn't seem, yeah. Well, the Blues in 6, that means they win it at home. Blues in 7 means they go to Boston and win it. Interesting, Mike.
All right, Bobby. And I know you want to talk about the NBA Finals, which start on Thursday night, and some little trends going on here with the odds.
Yeah, Mike, the prices, flipped. Toronto is the favorite at -1. -118 in the gentleman's caller. This question yesterday about the total, that's dipped a little bit down to 213.5. And the series price, and I put this on my sheet today, is plus, I've got it now updated, plus 240. And so, I think anything short of Kevin Durant being named going to play, which is not going to happen for Game 1, but anything short of that, I don't believe this is going to go back in the Warriors' direction at all. So I think if anything, it could come down, and this series price could be 220 by tomorrow at game time. By Thursday at game time. So I think if you're going to make a bet on the series, I'd do it now and take the 240. I got in at 255 myself, but it's 240 right now. I still like, and this, I was talking to my buddy last night, I still like Toronto in 6 or 7. And we talked about this in 6 plus 8 to 1 odds, in 7 plus 4.5. But there's a place, William Hill, up here that as of last night was still giving 12 to 1 on the Raptors, 4 to 2. And the Raptors to win it in 6 was 12 to 1. I'm going to go over there and see if that's still on the board available. It's about a 10-minute drive from where I'm at. But, Mike, I really like Toronto in the series with the price. If I had to put my life on the line with no odds involved, I would have to take the Warriors to win the series in that scenario. But to give -280, and I think yours is maybe even a little higher, to win this, that means they'll have to win it.
-290 on my bookie, so.
Yeah, it means they're 3 to 1 to win it. And
yeah, that means basically if you're betting 300 to win 100.
Right, and I think Toronto has got a big shot in this series. So, I'm going to take that 240, and I like the setup. I like everything about how it's set up. I don't mind. I mean, I love the fact that we played longer in our series and still have 3 days off. There's plenty of time to get adjusted to Golden State, and mentally and physically to be at a very, and they got the home game. It's kind of a rare situation. They don't have to go to Golden State game 1 off of a long series or off of a tough series. They stay right there, and they don't play just with 1 day off. They get 3 days off. All of Monday, all of Tuesday, all of Wednesday. They'll have a good plan. And, Mike, this team defensively can do a lot of different things. And I just think that they're going to have an opportunity to win right away in game 1. And that's why you've seen the line flip. And that's why, they've got a good shot in this series. I just think people, the masses, just can't get past Golden State ever losing. And what did they just witness? They witnessed, Houston was supposed to have the perfect plan, and they've built this team. Their general manager has built this team specifically to beat the Warriors, and you and I bought in, and we were with it. And they saw Curry and Thompson and Green destroy it. And now they're just made up their mind, oh, well, they just can't lose. Well, they can lose. They can lose. It's not always easy to drain all those deep threes and all that movement and all that energy. And, they were pretty involved in that Houston series losing Durant. That was pretty emotional. Well, now let's see if they can win it without it. And let's see if and when he does come back, if that really does improve their chances or not. Toronto's going to test them. And I'm not on any kind of a emotional, I made a lot of money on Toronto in that last series. A lot. It helped me out a lot. But that doesn't mean I'm just rolling blindly with them next series. I'm not a newbie. I really believe they got a big shot in this series to win it. And, it's not bad odds, plus 240 now to win the series. And game one, of course, I'll be on. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, but they're -1 for game one. And let's see. I'm looking forward to it, Mike.
All right, Bobby, what do we got on this day?
Well, on this day, we've got, 1980. This was an interesting one because of what it's going to lead us into. You were great when you said I had the 2 Oakland A's steal home in the first inning. All right. You'll never see this again. These guys will barely even steal second base now in this steroid, 2019 version of the MLB, which is, I still love baseball, but it's not the game style I love.
The interesting thing here, Bobby, is this. Those 2 steals of home on May the 28th, neither one of them were by Ricky Henderson.
Wow.
You didn't know that?
Would have lost a lot of money on that. No, I didn't.
Dwayne Murphy, Wayne Gross. And there was 7 steals in that game. Of course, Billy Ball was what turned around a about-to-be-sold and moved franchise. In 1979, Charlie Finley was going to move them to New Orleans. 1980, he thought about Denver. Finally, in 1981, he sold the A's to a baseball enthusiast. What was his name? I think his last name was Haas. He owned the team through the Bash Brothers. But in 1979, the Oakland A's were a team that were 54 and 108. They drew 306,000 fans for 82 games, which, by my calculations, is not many fans per game.
Wow.
It's about 3,500 per game. And if you want to rebuild something, Billy Martin's the guy to do it. He did it in, Texas and Detroit before New York even? I know Texas for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And...
Oh, yeah, both. Texas and Detroit, yeah.
Yeah, and this was a team that did not... Everything you see today, completely flipped that around, and you had Billy Martin and the way he played baseball. He had a young team. They had stud starting pitching. You had Mike Norris, Matt Keogh, Rick Langford. Of course, you had a rookie who had played a little bit in the major leagues in '79, Ricky Henderson. And energized by the new Haas ownership, Billy Martin, 1980, they were 83-79. You go to 1981, they're fired up by Martin. They get the new owner. People are back in the stadium. The A's storm out to out of training camp. They start the season 11-0. They win one game, or they lose one game by a run at 11-0. They go on to win 6 more games, and their record in April ended up being 19-1. The starting rotation of Langford, Keogh, Norris. Also, you had Steve McCatty, if you remember, as Mel Allen says on This Week in Baseball, he drives them batty, and they had Brian Kingman. And they drew national attention during April. I've still got the Sports Illustrated from the end of April, where they got the entire starting staff up there. And this is a team that the A's pitching staff went the distance 60 times in 1981. The important thing to remember about that 60 times in 162 games is a ton of complete games. But you had a strike-shortened season, 109 games. They had 60 complete games, which was double that of any other team in the league at the time. Langford finished 18 of 24 games. McCatty was like 16 for 22. Norris was 12 for 23. Keogh had double digits. And The team at the time was said to have the best outfield in baseball. You had Tony Armas, who led the American League in home runs. He kind of disappeared after that. I remember he went to the Red Sox and was on the Red Sox teams that won a few divisions at the end of the 80s. You had Dwayne Murphy in center field, and then, of course, you had Ricky Henderson in left. Murphy and Henderson both won the Golden Glove for their positions in 1981. Henderson also won the Silver Slugger Award while finishing second in the AL and MVP as he finished second for the MVP to Milwaukee closer Raleigh Fingers. Now, I wrote an article about the greatest pinch hitters of all time, and actually wrote it 3 years ago, but we re-put it out because it's evergreen about a month ago. And the guy that stood out here at number one was Cliff Johnson. And Cliff Johnson was he was discarded by the Yankees and the Indians. He went to the A's in 1981, and in the DH spot, remember, this is only 100 games, he hit 17 home runs and puts up an OPS of 805. And the thing about this A's team is they kind of dropped off. They flatlined after that. In May, they go 13-17 after the 19-1 start, which included like a 1-9 East Coast road trip. And on June 1st, or June 10th, that 19-1 start had turned into a 37-23 record. They only led by one game over the Royals, and that's when you had to strike. And back then with that, they went by the split seasons. So the A's were up a game. The A's became the AL East first half champions, or AL West first half champions. Yeah. And then the Royals come back, and they beat out the A's by 2.5 games. And the Royals win that half of the AL West. They go back, and they play a best-of-5 series, division championship series. And in that championship series, the Royals could not hit to save their lives. The A's, of course, threw 2 out of 3 complete games. They only gave up 3 runs the entire 3-game series. They wiped out the Royals there. And this is a Royals team that was in the World Series the year before, had been in the ALCS in 76, 77, 78, 80, made it to the Division Championship Series in 81. They just couldn't do anything there. And then you get to the 1981 American League Championship Series, and you get a few things here. Yeah, the A's get absolutely destroyed. They got humiliated. I think in the 3 games, they got outscored like 20-4, and they got swept by the Yankees. The interesting thing here is this. The Yankees did not win the AL East if you go combine first half, second half records. That would have been Milwaukee. But Milwaukee ended up having to play a 5th and deciding game at Yankee Stadium. The interesting thing there, because everything's interesting to me today for some reason, was in that American League Divisional Championship Series, if I remember right, I think the Brewers lost the first 2 games, come back, win the next 2. Game 5's at Yankee Stadium. They lose Game 5, and then the Yankees go on to smack the crap out of the A's. And then, of course, 1981 still pisses me off because I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan. And if they would have just played to completion, the Reds would have played the Cardinals in the LCS. And neither team ended up making the playoffs. You had the Dodgers and the Astros. I think the Dodgers finished the first half like a half a game in front of the Reds, which is really unfair because they played one more game than the Reds, and that was never made up, so that would be equal footing.
Right.
But you had a team from L.A., so you got to get them in there. And you look at St. Louis had the best record in the West. No, it wasn't the West. It was the East. Because Cincinnati was in the West, remember? That's when it was all screwed up.
Right.
But St. Louis didn't make the playoffs in the West, and you ended up playoffs of Montreal against Philadelphia in the East. And in the West, you had the Dodgers and the Astros, and I think the Dodgers-Astros went to complete 5 games. Montreal-Philly went 4. Dodgers ended up beating the Expos in Game 5 on a Rick Monday home run in the top of the 9th inning. And the thing that stands out to me the most about the Billy Ball was this. We could sit there and talk about, man, we wish pitchers, Don't we always do that? I wish pitchers would just be allowed to finish what they started.
Right.
But the thing is this. Those pitchers that I named there all had 2 unbelievable seasons in 1980 and 81. By the time you get to 1982, they're all hurt. The pitchers are worn out, and they go 68-94. Martin was let go at the end of 1982. But the one thing he did do is he saved the A's from being moved. The A's were bought after a successful 1980 season where they finished second at like 89-73. And the thing that's even more impressive is the A's in 1981. Remember, in 1980 through 82 or 1979 through 82 games, they drew 300,000 fans. The A's in 1981, in a shortened season, drew 1.3 million fans, which would have been a pace to draw 2.2 million in 1981 without the strike.
Yeah, that's Billy Martin, just unbelievable manager he is, and how he can get a team playing, and that style of baseball is really difficult to beat. And obviously, he was prepared coming out of spring training, and this guy, when you put him in a situation, he turns a program around. You started out your talk about he is the perfect guy to come in and get a program turned around. But he's not, a little bit like Larry Brown. He's not.
That's what I was. That was exactly who I was going to bring up when you were talking about that, like that.
Yeah, a little bit like Larry Brown, and then he had his relationship with Steinbrenner mixed in there too from the 70s and on into the 80s, and then he passed away, driving drunk. He was about a mile away from his home when he went around a curve. It was a curvy type entrance streetwise, up into his home, and he misjudged one of the curves and hit a pole or something and died. And he did battle alcoholism, and felt bad for him later in his career through the 80s. After this Oakland, this was maybe his last hurrah, because then he was fired a few more times by Steinbrenner, and it's just difficult, to see him. But you go back into those old Yankee guys, you read some of the books, he was a big part of, Mantle and these guys, he was a big part of their team, of their the team's spirit and unity, and no doubt he became a great manager. He's a legend. And what he did with Oakland, you said so well, how he saved that franchise. And remember, this was a franchise that won how many World Series? I mean, they were back-to-back in 73 and 74, right? They went back-to-back.
You're talking about the A's?
Yeah, Reds beat them in 75, right? That was
No. Actually, the A's made the playoffs in 71, and they got beat by Baltimore. 1972,
okay, yes.
They won the World Series in 7 games over the Reds. And this is the thing that's interesting about that. A lot of people forget this. But in 1972, the manager against the A's in the ALCS was the Detroit Tigers, who in 1971 were terrible. They hire Billy Martin, and Billy Martin immediately takes them to the ALCS. And the thing that's interesting about that is that was the one where Reggie Jackson gets hurt in Game 5. And what was the injury? Because I think that he actually ended up stealing Bert Campanera and one of the other Tigers in the Game 5. So right there, Billy Martin again taking a team out of nowhere. And the thing about Martin was he was one of the best infielders in baseball. And he made some really considerable contributions to the Yankees as a team. And people never seem to remember that. And the one I remembered the most would have been in the 1952 World Series, Game 7. Jackie Robinson hits a pop-up late in Game 7. It's wind blown. And there's a runner in scoring position. It's like a one-run game. And Martin makes a spectacular catch to win the game for him. And 1953 World Series, he was the most valuable player in the Yankees' victory. I think that was against the Dodgers also. And then his career kind of fell apart because he missed 2 seasons because he went in the military in 1954 and 55. He was drafted into the Army for the Korean War. and then he just kind of disappeared there. But he goes to the Tigers. He takes them, the Tigers, to the AL East title in 72. By the end of 73, the Tigers have fired him. And then he was hired by the Rangers, and he turned them for a season, 1974, into a winning team, but was fired amid a conflict with ownership in 1975. And after that, he was immediately hired by the Yankees. And as the Yankees manager, he led them to consecutive pennants in 1976 and 77. They got swept by the Big Red Machine in 1976. They ended up beating the Dodgers in 6 with that, the memorable Game 6 at Yankee Stadium. I think it was like 9-2, but Reggie Jackson hits the 3 home runs on 3 pitches. And then they start doing the thing back and forth where he gets fired and he's not fired. And I couldn't even tell you after 1977 when he was the manager and when Bill Lemon was the manager, or Bob Lemon was the manager, because it seemed like it switched every couple days. He was with the Yankees from 80 and 82. Of course, he was fired after 82. He was rehired by the Yankees 3 more times, each for a season or less, and each ended with Steinbrenner firing him.
Yeah. And, so going back just on 2 things. So Oakland in the 70s, did they three-peat 72, 73, and 74?
Yeah, they beat the Reds in 7, they beat the Mets in 7, and then the final series in 1974, they beat the Dodgers in 5, and then in 1975, they lost in the ALCS to the Boston Red Sox. They got swept 3-0 there. 1971, they lost to the Orioles 3-1. So they actually won their division 5 straight years. And then what happened was Charles Finley, all those guys, that's when you had the free agency and everything rear its head in like 76, 77. And Charles Finley did not have the money to keep all those guys together. So he basically was selling them off. He was trading them off. I mean, he was selling players for money. And that was the one where, I think it was in 1978. Who was the big pitcher for the A's?
Catfish Hunter?
Yeah. Who was the one that was good? No, it was Vida Blue. Vida Blue was supposed to be traded to the Cincinnati Reds, and the Reds had Tom Seaver at the time and everything. And remember, Bowie Kuhn came in and said that it would be an unfair trade to give the Reds,
Vida Blue.
I know. And that pissed me off. I haven't liked Bowie Kuhn ever since. And then he'd let Bowie Kuhn go to the Giants, and or Vida Blue go to the Giants, but at least Vida Blue didn't have to really move his stuff. He could still stay in the same house, probably, because they're right next to each other.
Just drive over the bridge, yep.
Yeah. All right, Bobby, anything else before we wrap it up?
No, yeah, a little bit, Mike. The ATP is French Open is rolling along. We had a plus 260 winner yesterday with Herbert, and that saved our day. We were actually 1-3 with our selections, but only lost $40. And then today we split our selections, but we hit a plus 185, I believe, Thompson was. And so we made 85. So $100 better is up $45 in 2 days, which is nothing big, but we're 2-4 in our matches. But both of them at nice prices, so we're a winner, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tomorrow. So we're looking to go 3-2 tomorrow, maybe 4-1. These prices are all pretty good. I really like tomorrow's matchups, and they're on the report that's on free online right now on the Twitter. So those 5 matchups are tomorrow. You'll just have to get your times, look up your times, because as of this posting, it was just to be announced, and there'll be times probably another couple hours popping up for those matches tomorrow. So see if we can get some nice winners for the fans tomorrow. And then today was a split, which is a win. 100 on each. You still make $85. So let's get baseball good tonight, Mike. We got your hockey tomorrow. Got hoops Thursday night. We're rolling.
All right, let's go ahead, and I'll tell everybody what's coming up tonight at 11 o'clock. Me and Jeremiah Pricer will be on with Inside Boxing Daily. Also today at 3 o'clock Eastern, you go to the Facebook page for The Grilling Truth. We will have on live on Facebook to Joe Calzaghe, Jeff Lacey title fight from about 15 years ago. Tonight at 9 o'clock, we will have light heavyweight legend Bob Foster, as he attempted to become a heavyweight and fought Doug Jones, who was a top 10 heavyweight at the time. And then at midnight tonight, Eastern, we will have Larry Holmes versus Tim Witherspoon. You can watch all those fights in their entirety. And you can check out the ones that we've run over the last few days, but make sure you check that out. There'll be a lot more live video on the Facebook page. We got a lot of things coming that we're going to add a lot of value to everything here. Survive in Advance will be posted in about 30 minutes. And today, Steve Risley is with Cole Hanna, and they were talking about superstitions on sports lore, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I would assume Cole's the good and Steve's the ugly. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to let you all go for today. But remember, go to the iTunes store and check out the Grueling Truth app. Also, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find the Grueling Truth. So, for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.